a lot of times in life, you might find yourself in a situation where you've promised pretty much everyone around you way too much, and you have basically no way of fulfilling those expectations. And so instead of even trying or attempting to do anything to resolve your situation, you just sit and wait for the inevitable collapse of everyone around you onto yourself. I am currently slightly in one of these predicaments. Um, and, obviously that's my fault. Uh, but I also think that it's not an unsolvable issue. You know, this doesn't really have anything to do with STEM TV, by the way. STEM is going well. I wouldn't say it's going great, but it's going decently well. I couldn't get WebRTC working no matter what I did, so eventually I just reverted to HLS, which is gonna result in like a 5 to 10 second delay in the video stream. But I think that's at least acceptable for a closed alpha. Hopefully, hopefully the other features will make up for it. But yeah, I don't know. It's just even after graduating, which I graduated a few days ago. Even after graduating, it's just I feel like I'm just completely dishonest to myself, maybe, but I'm not really sure. Maybe it's weird. Maybe I don't have enough ego, or maybe I have too much ego. I can't really be sure of that. And I know the lighting's pretty awful, but I don't really, it's pretty much night and I'm on a walk, so it's gonna be pretty bad. Maybe I should sit down somewhere that's kind of bright. Nah, but yeah, there's a fair bit of projects that I am working on, and the issue that I keep coming onto that I referred to in my first video is, well, it's not exactly that issue. I've moved on from that. I definitely have picked up more of a futurist sort of, I guess, even accelerationist mindset where, I think there's a lot of benefit to going through and standing on the shoulders of the systems that have been already built up to, achieve something that wasn't achievable maybe 5, 10, 50 years ago. But I keep coming across this other issue, which I guess would be the more core issue that sort of led to that first initial issue, which is sort of art, versus practicality. It's sort of an attempt at balancing that in all my projects. With STEM, it's obviously a lot more practical. There's barely any artistic merit to it. I mean, it is still fulfilling as a project, but there are just some projects that it just feels good to sort of like not just think about, but also work on. For example, for years now, I want to say, yeah, 10 years. It's been 10 years since I was around 7, maybe a bit younger. I've been working on games, not just like programming games, but also, working on concepts and, sketches and diagrams and electronic parts for game consoles, and generally just been around the games industry, whether it's, news about upcoming games or new technologies like engines. And even now, every time I think or talk about like the more technical and I guess artistic aspects of games, the more larger than life parts of the industry, I just get really excited and passionate. Even though I'm like 90% sure that's not the career that I want to or am going to pursue. I mean, well, I'm not fully sure, but it's looking like that. I really also enjoy computer engineering, and computer engineering pays a whole lot better. So that's probably going to be the field that I'm going to be in. And I'm not saying that you can't be creative in these more technical fields. I'm not saying that there's no artistic merit or value, but you certainly do have to get a lot more esoteric if you do want to unlock esoteric, artistic value from these things. You know, just writing system Verilog isn't really by itself, I won't say, an art, but I'm not really sure. Obviously, this isn't me excusing myself to divert my attention to other projects. I am going to be following through with STEM. It's just something that I've been thinking about. Initially I joined Tom's community, the Beebs Laboratorium, because I was working on this. I'd say, from my current way of thinking, it was pretty idealistic. This idealistic operating system, and you know, almost like an entire consumer electronics environment called Atlas. And the idea was, all data is stored in these schemas that have relations to each other. So instead of writing programs, you just write relations between schemas. And by doing that, you can, form interactive applications. And I'd say that, for example, has quite a bit of artistic value. It's something new, it's novel. It's maybe not, it is practical, but it's not really practical. Like, it would be practical in the sense that a language like Haskell is practical compared to something like C++ or Java. I mean, it has its use, but it's definitely not useful all the time, you know? And that's my main concern with projects that I work on, is that I want them to be useful. I want people to use them. I want people to get value out of them. And I do think those kinds of projects are really interesting. Like AI, Web3 projects are pretty cool, especially like locally hosted LLM projects I think are very interesting. I just don't know. I really don't. But maybe it's just maybe not looking deep enough into these projects to see more, value in them. But sometimes it just feels like some of them are just hooking up APIs, and just hook up a few APIs and boom, you have something. And obviously that's the means to an end, that's just to get you to somewhere where you can work on those more creative projects while still making profit. And I guess that's the sort of thing I need to make out of this, is that, you know, those kinds of projects, for example, Meridian, is more of just a means than the end, you know? Even STEM, even though I do really enjoy working on STEM and the idea of STEM, I'd say is more of a means for specifically the vestibule, or however you pronounce it. So we have a better place for peer programming, collaboration, and just a general knowledge base. That's pretty much all I will have to say. I mean, I don't really know. I'm going to finish up STEM's closed alpha, hopefully by the end of this week, as in like by Monday. And I do have to travel in a few days, in around a week or so. So hopefully I can get the closed alpha and I can get some feedback by then. I will have a computer with me, hopefully. So yeah, that's how that's gonna go. Bye.